Welcome back. Now, in his traditional Hasidic Jewish garb, Rabbi Yaakov Herzog stands out on the streets of the Saudi city of Riyadh, but he says he feels right at home in the Arab kingdom and in fact intends to move there permanently.
الإسلام السياسي في أي مكان في فرنسا أو في غير فرنسا، لأنه لا يستهدف قيم الدين ولا القيم الوطنية لأي بلد، ولا أيضا يحترم دساتير وقوانين البلدان، إنما خلفيته السياسية التي تريد الوصول إلى أجندة سياسية معينة، وبالتالي هذا لا يمثل الإسلام.
Said that they were warmly welcomed in the kingdom. It is true that the word Jewish still rings an ominous bell in some people's ears, but overall they were very well received. And this is very important, Laura. This is aligned with Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS vision in fixing and rehabilitating the Muslim-Jewish relations. This is how I see it.
The United States convened a secret meeting of top military chiefs from Israel and Arab countries, including Saudi Arabia, to explore how they could coordinate against Iran.
President Joe Biden will be visiting Saudi Arabia to bring the Wahhabi kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Israel together. There's even rumours of a budding Arab-Israeli security ties, which will eventually become the Arab-Israeli NATO. But how plausible is all this? For us to answer this question, we need to look at exactly what the Wahhabi kingdom of Saudi Arabia is and how it interacts with its neighbours. Saudi Arabia isn't all Wahhabi though, it's important to let you know. There are some Sunnis, despite the years of brainwashing by the Wahhabi kingdom. Oh, and then there's the Shias too, who account for 25% of the population. And guess what? They live where all the oil and gas is. They aren't happy, and most likely in the future they will want their own Shia state. After all, Wahhabis are stealing from them. So this unified Arab NATO is actually in the best interests of both Israel and Saudi Arabia. But is it in the interest of all other Arabs? First up is the Arab Republic of Egypt. There's disputes. Yes, there's disputes in the Gulf of Aqaba. In 2016, the Saudis obtained 2 islands that were opposite Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. So any Arab NATO with Egypt will not work, especially since there's no resolution in respect to the 2 islands in the Gulf of Aqaba, which both Egypt and Saudi Arabia lay claims to. Supposedly Biden's meant to mediate on the matter if he doesn't fall asleep after a few minutes of a mediation session. Next up is the Hashimite Kingdom of Jordan. Will they join an Arab NATO? Maybe, but it won't last for too long. Border tensions have been going on since the time of Winston Churchill, when the borders were drawn. But what's important to tell you is, the Hashimites, descendants of the Prophet's great-grandfather, ruled Mecca from the 10th century until 1924. They were driven out by the Saudis, and the Jordanians of course aren't too happy about that. Will Iraq join this Arab-Israeli NATO? Probably not. It would anger its neighbour Iran. Not only that, the Saudis also think they own most parts of Iraq, all the way to Euphrates. Yes, Iraq and Saudi Arabia used to have something called a neutral zone. The Saudi Arabian-Iraqi neutral zone was an area on the border between Saudi Arabia and Iraq. Although it's been settled, the Iraqis don't trust the Wahhabi kingdom and wouldn't want to join a so-called Arab NATO where Saudi Arabia dominates. The Kingdom of Bahrain. Ah, Bahrain. MashaAllah. Now they'll join, because this fake kingdom is weak. Until 1971, its business was conducted by the Brits. We traded Bahraini interests. Today, the Saudi Wahhabi elite of predominantly Shia Bahrain sees Riyadh as a defender against both Iran and the riots of the Arab Spring. So be sure, they'll join if there's an Arab NATO, But how long will its leadership last till Iran gets hold of them? Well, we shall wait and see. So you see folks, this Arab NATO is bound to fail. Nobody really likes Saudi Arabia in the region, they just have to live with it. A lot of countries were scared of the Saudis because in the past it looked like America was giving it unconditional support, but today we know that's not the case. The Wahhabi kingdom is clever. It uses religion to blackmail its neighbours and promote radicalism and extremism throughout the world, as well as other Muslim states. But as things are changing and information is coming to light, people are waking up. A great awakening is happening, and it's why Saudi Arabia is promoting nationalism and calling for moderate Islam. I'll give you an example. Saudi Arabia has issued so many fatwas against the Shias, even used weak hadiths to promote its hatred against Iran and the Shia. But today people aren't falling for all their rubbish, especially Muslims of the West. These weak hadiths were used to normalize hatred against Iran. It's in their books. A lot of Muslims were told Dajjal will come from Isfahan, Iran. The false messiah, the Antichrist, will apparently come from Isfahan in Iran. God knows where they get that from. Let's read it together and I'll tell you why it's weak and false. The Dajjal will be followed by 70,000 Jews of Isfahan wearing Persian shawls. This hadith was written in the 9th century, years after the departure of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and was written around 846 AD. Remember this date. According to official figures, there's less than 20,000 Jews in Iran and less than 1,000 Jews in Isfahan alone. Unless they're going to breed like rabbits, how will they achieve 70,000 as per hadith? Because it's forged, it's weak, it's an old story. The story is a story of a false messiah from Isfahan, Abu Isa, also known as Ovadiah Ishaq ibn Yaqub al-Isfahani. He was a self-proclaimed Jewish prophet in the 8th century CE in Persia and the leader of a very short-lived revolt in Isfahan. Some of his followers said he was the Messiah. Abu Isa himself, he actually didn't claim to be as such, but he had a number of followers, they say around 70,000. During that time, Abu Isa's forces fought with Caliph al-Mansur's army, a religious figure. Abu Isa fell in this battle. He died. The hadith was created for Abu Isa of Isfahan by religious authorities of the time in order to recruit people for this battle against this cult. You see folks, what I'm sharing here will never be taught in Saudi-funded madrasas across the globe. They are told to believe everything in the hadiths, but we must read the Quran, which gives us light, and check whether the hadith agrees with the Holy Quran. If it doesn't, chuck it out. We must also check historical accounts to see if there's a pattern or stories of the past. If they match and the timings correlate, you bet these are old tales recycled again for a purpose, and that's one of the biggest deceptions of the Antichrist, to spread evil and hatred amongst human beings.